Hey, hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. Welcome in this new video dedicated to Docker tutorials again and another part about Docker and Docker network. We discover today the network CLI, some really useful command to debug or troubleshoot your Docker containers. So let's get started. Of course, I have aside of it a virtual server with Docker installed on it, and what we saw previously. If you don't see the other video about network, of course, we just saw that a container, a Docker container, can have an IP, a dedicated IP, but if we stop this container and if we start another container or multiple other containers, we can start again our the same container, and this container can change this IP, can have another IP. So for example, we can just do it quickly. We can just run, for example, docker run -d to detach mode, name C1, and we want an Nginx, and we want the latest tag, latest version of our Nginx. We download the image, Nginx image, and after it, of course, we have a Docker container in running status. If I check it with the docker inspect command about our C1 container, we can check our IP, of course, and we have the 172.17.0.2 IP, and I can start, for example, another container, the C2 container, okay, and the C3 container, for example. And what I want to do now, if I just want to check, I can check to inspect the C2. I have the .3 IP here, and for the C3 container, we have the .4. So now what I want to do, I want to stop my Docker container. So I stop the C1, for example. I don't drop this container, I don't remove it, I just stop the C1 container. So if I just run a docker ps, I have only two containers, C2 and C3. If I just run ps-a, I have the C1, but my container is exited, so stopped. Now what I want to do, I want to create another container, C4, for example. Okay, and so now if I just check with the docker inspect the IP of our C4 container, what we have the IP of our previous C1 container with the .2. So if I just start, so if I run docker start about our C1 container again, this is the same container that we have previously. So if I run docker inspect on C1 container, what we have another IP on the same container. This is very important to understand that and to remember that. That means that we never use the IP of a Docker container. It's better to use, like I say here, to use a DNS. For example, in some use case, you can use if you are in the same bridge, for example, in your Docker engine, you can use the DNS with the container name, or if you use some tools like traffic, for example, a well-known reverse proxy, you can use the traffic and set your traffic to use the Docker API to dynamically set the IP for each container. This is very, very interesting to use it, because with this API you can set dynamically your configuration about your traffic or your reverse proxy. So this is just for example. And now we have a dedicated Docker CLI for the network management, and you can run Docker network. And if we run it, we can find here some command dedicated to Docker network. We can run, for example, Docker network ls to list our network on our Docker engine, on our virtual server. We can see that we have the bridge network, the host network, and non-network. This is important. If you remember that we saw in the previous video, we saw that we have three kind of network. The bridge, this is the default usage about the Docker network, but you can use the host network or the non-networks. Host network bypass all bridge or other stuff provided by Docker. Just you use directly the host. This is better for the performance, but this is not better for your security or isolation, network isolation. And you can use the non-network. Non-network is a complete isolation. A container just can't go outside of its container. So what you can see again, we can inspect network, RM, or create networks. This is important. This is like, for example, the container command line about Docker CLI, and we can run Docker, for example, inspect of network inspect, network inspect about our bridge, named bridge by default, and into it what we have some specification about our bridge. The default bridge, what we see the name of this bridge. This is bridge, of course. Local bridge, this is the scope. The driver, to tell we want a bridge, not a host or other stuff. We don't want to use IPv6. The IPAM to know the subnet or the gateway of the subnetwork for this bridge. You can see here we have the 172.170.0/16 and the gateway here. Some other stuff, and you can find here the list of all container that use all our network, all the network, all of this bridge. For example, here we have the container named C3. We have a MAC address, a virtual MAC address for this container, and of course his IP, its IP, and the same for C2, the same for C1, and for C4. Okay, and some other stuff here. And this is the name of the bridge, well known and known outside the Docker engine. See, like a label, for example. Now what we have, we can create a specific network. So we can just use network create, and for example, we can create a TT network. And when we do this, of course, we have now a new network named TT, and by default, the network kind is bridge. This is the default driver. So you can now run Docker network inspect on our new bridge, and you can see here we have another subnet dedicated for its bridge. Okay, what we can do, we can remove, of course, Docker network RM of our TT network, and now, of course, we have removed the previous network, and we already saw that we can use Docker inspect. How we can use our new network? So of course we need to create the network, and after it we can just set this network into the Docker run CLI with -- network and the name of our network. For example, I just recreate the network TT for oh, I can't do it. Oh no, create. Where is create? Yeah, okay. So now I can run again docker -d --name C5 if I remember well, and network TT and Nginx again. Nginx. We don't really need to set the tags. By default, this is the latest. And if I run docker ps, of course, we have our C5 container here. And if I run docker inspect of our container C5, we have, of course, used the first IP of our network, because the gateway is .1 and we use the .2 here, and we can run a docker network inspect on our new network TT, and if I check, of course, we can see that we have only one container, the C5 container, with its IP. Okay. That's it for the usage. You can, when you create a new network, you can set the kind of this network with docker network create and -- driver to set a bridge, for example, but you can set another kind of network. And this bridge, we want to set a dedicated subnet for this bridge. For example, here we can set the subnet, and we can set 172.1.0.1/16, if I remember. Oh yes, you can directly pass 0, and of course the name of our network, I can set xavkey 0, and now we have our network with, we can check it with docker network ls, and if I inspect docker network inspect on our new network xavkey 0, of course we have our new network, and of course I can create a new container on this network, xavkey 0. Okay, so C5, not C5, C6, and docker inspect on C6 container, and we can see that we have our container here. I can just run a curl to check that our network works. And of course, this is not only magic. You can find here on our virtual machine, we can find some new interface, new bridge. Of course, previously we have our Docker 0 default bridge, but you can find now, I think, Xavkey 0. Maybe not, the name is totally defined. This is this bridge, yes. This is not the name of our network. This is an ID for our bridge, but you can find here, no, this is 20, it's here, this is an ID also, but you can find here the subnet of our bridge. Cool. And of course you can find another vEthernet dedicated on this bridge. This is this one with 752 at the end, and you can check here, but we have the vEthernet. This is the vEthernet for the C6 container. And if you create some container in the same bridge, for example, we have created the C6 container here, we can create the C7 container, and now we can go inside or aside, but this is a private joke. You can run docker exec -ti with C7, and we want to have a bash, for example. I think we have ping command, not this is apt, I think apt update, and with apt install what is ping utils? No, ping utils. So I just need to remember. Need to. Install ping. What is it? It is IP utils ping. IP utils dash ping. And IP utils here. And now what we can do, remember that I said it's better to use DNS, but if we are in the same bridge with multiple containers and we want to ping another container and to connect, for example, we are in an app container, but we want to connect to a database with another container, so we can just use the name of our container. For example, here we can ping C6 container, and you can see here that we resolve our C6 to target the .2 IP. Perfect. But if we just want to ping C2 container, we can't do it because we are not in the same bridge, and these tricks only work in the same bridge. I think yes, some other stuff. Yes. This is really interesting to know that when you have a container, when you run a container, this is a legacy mode, but when you run a container, so I think I can full screen. Yes. When you run a container, for example, you can run a Docker container C10, for example, and when you run it, you can run another container and specify that you can use -- link and the name of our previous container to link with this previous container. This is interesting to do it to automatically connect to this bridge, but you can see this is a legacy mode. Not really interesting to use it, of course. I don't speak about host type of network because this is not deprecated, but a big warning about it. Be careful to use it, because if you use it, you have no isolation. This is like you run, for example, an Nginx directly on your host, but you don't remember that you use. If you don't remember that you use this kind of network, this is not really interesting to do this kind of network. You have no container IP if you use it, of course. You directly run your container on the hosted network. You can't use multi-port. For example, when we run Nginx, we have multiple IP, but we can, like we saw, we can map the port 80 with, for example, port 8080 on our virtual server, but we can run another container on the port 8081 and so on. But if we use the host network, we can't do it, of course. It's better for performance, but not really interesting to use it with a big warning. To use it, if you want to test it, you can run docker run -d --name c1 -network host. But if I remember well, I think we have a big warning, and I'm not sure that we can run it directly. We can test it with docker run -d -name c10, for example, and -network, and we want to use a host network with an Nginx. And I run it. Oh, it works. It works. We have the 10 container here, and normally if I use our local host here, this is the C10 container who respond to us. Okay, and we can just, if you are curious like me, you can use docker inspect on a C10 container. What we have: no IP address, no gateway, because this is directly the virtual server, our host that we use for the network. That's it for today. Remember to not miss to subscribe to the channel, to not miss the next video, like this video, post some comments, and see you to the next one. Bye.